Is pressure getting to Nottingham Forest? Is this the reason why we've seen in recent weeks a bit of a decline in form and performances? Having lost the last two games against Everton and Aston Villa, one of them we were very hard done by in my opinion against Villa, a more than decent performance in the second half especially, and one of them a real slump of a game, just a real poor match overall, but a poor performance from everyone in that team really. And probably the only time I can say that this season, maybe the Bournemouth game away from home when we did lose 5-0, so I probably should include that in particularly poor games. Everything was very disjointed in that Everton game, very nervous on the ball, very negative, and that's literally how we ended up conceding. Nervous on the ball from Murillo, and then there was no one back, and you knew at that stage that they were all but certainly going to score. Riding our luck an awful lot with giving away so many corners and not really learning our lessons. But we have always bounced back from low points this season. If we go back to November, we lost to Arsenal, Man City and Newcastle 3 out of 4 games. We then go on a 9-game unbeaten run, winning 8 of them. The one we didn't win, we drew with Liverpool. Pretty big deal. That run of form at the halfway stage was truly outstanding. I've never seen Forest do so well and be so convincing. We were just electric in that run of form. A run of form that was even sparking possible talk of a title charge, which I can't believe was even a real debate. But when you're talking about a possible Premier League title charge, that's going to raise pressure to an insane level that we haven't been used to. All Forest players came out at the time and were being very level-headed and grounded, and they still are being so, saying, oh, we're not really thinking about it, typical answers, one game at a time. And I think it did end up getting to them a bit. Because let's go over the second half of the season just briefly and see how it's gone. Because we bounced back from those defeats in November with that phenomenal run of form. But then the final game of that winning run was against Southampton. On record, currently the worst Premier League team in history, and we nearly bottled a 3-goal lead to them. Having been 3-0 up at half time, we were all saying we can get a few more here. We nearly threw it away thanks to Ola Aina clearing it off the line in the last minute. We didn't. Bit of an alarm bells moment, but we got over the line. Then we get absolutely smashed by Bournemouth 5-0, our arch nemesis, because we never beat that team. Literally never, and I don't think we will, to be honest. Very concerning, but then we win 7-0 the next week. So you're thinking, okay, that really was just a massive drop-off. We've just beaten a good side in Brighton, 7 clear goals. Following this was a penalty shootout win against Exeter in the FA Cup. FA Cup magic can always play a part. Those games are actually a lot harder than they might sound, and Exeter were more than a credit on the night to take us to penalties. But you probably would have thought that even our second string team could have got the job done. Following this was defeats to Fulham and Newcastle. Fulham game we were just a bit nonplussed, nothing horrendous, but we were ultimately defeated. Newcastle, we saw another moment where we conceded in quick succession a number of times. We were 4-1 down within half an hour. But this game we come back and we very nearly get a point out of it, and it wouldn't have been undeserved. So you're thinking, okay, we've lost a second here, we've kind of gone back to that away sort of glitch where we just concede in quick succession, but we made a game of it, which we wouldn't have done before. But again, now we've had 3 defeats in fairly quick succession, having done so earlier in the season, but then we bounce back and follow it with a draw to Arsenal. Through again in the FA Cup against Ipswich, not the greatest performance in the world, but it was probably just a cup tie sort of game anyway. But then wins against Man City, Ipswich and Man United in the league, all massively raising our spirits and thinking, yeah, we've pretty much got this. We're in the driving seat of getting Champions League football. Ipswich, we did normally what we are very good at in conceding in quick succession and scored a number of goals in quick succession. Not to mention the Brighton Cup game as well, the 3rd game in a row in the FA Cup, which went to extra time and penalties. This was before the Man United game, and it was in that Man United game where we saw Ola Aina get injured. Nico Williams and Ola Aina have been an outstanding pair of fullbacks this season, but luckily until that Man United game a few weeks ago, had never once suffered any injury. Then it's next man up in Alex Moreno, who was fantastic in the first half of the season, but since losing his place to Nico Williams, hasn't been anywhere near the same player that he once was, only really being known for cheerleading the home crowd when we win a game. And after those three, it's Harry Toffolo and Eric da Silva Moreira, a young promising prospect, but is he ready for this level? And Harry Toffolo is a fantastic professional to have around the club, but ultimately isn't the level. We also didn't have Chris Wood for the Brighton and Man United game, and we wouldn't have Alex Moreno for the game against Aston Villa or Anthony Elanga in the second half. Suddenly we've got injuries in the fullback positions and the striker positions. The two places where we are poor in terms of squad depth. We've got loads of depth in midfield, at centre back even, on the wings. We've all been crying out we need to sign a striker to support Chris Wood, and we haven't. And then when we have a game where we don't have Chris Wood at all, and then Taro Wani can't even step up against Aston Villa, there's no striker. But I think going to extra time 3 games in a row in the FA Cup, then reaching a semi-final, is that on our minds? Then 6 games to go, can we get Champions League football? We're in the driving seat, I've said that already. But, you know, it's a lot of pressure, isn't it? And I just seem to think maybe that's playing a part here. The pressure, the extra football that has been played that we probably didn't need to play. And then the squad depth is clearly becoming a bit of a problem too. But of course we follow all of the games that I've just mentioned with a defeat to Villa, where we don't play very well at all in the early stages, but then make a real game of it. And if we could actually finish our chances, would have comfortably, arguably won that match. But it's the Everton game where we were just outright pretty poor. In fact, poor. We weren't good at all in that game. And that's the only game, probably besides Bournemouth away from home, where I can say that, where we've been outright just rubbish, not very good. I think Everton, though, in a lot of ways is worse because we were at home, where we hadn't lost since November. That's a long time. We were at home where we were expected to win against Everton, who have been a different team under David Moyes, but ultimately lower echelons of the table, we should surely be winning. There was an expectation to win that game. There wasn't an expectation to beat Aston Villa necessarily. And I think there's a big difference. So that's a concern. And you look at the other games we've lost to. Newcastle have won the League Cup this season, probably going to get Champions League 2. We've lost to them both times. We've lost to Arsenal and Man City, traditional Big Six sides, all pushing for Europe or even the title. Probably not the title in Arsenal's case because they're Arsenal. Then losing to Bournemouth at the time, they were also a contender for Champions League or at least European football. They probably still are to a point. And then Fulham are also in that conversation, but maybe losing both games is a bit concerning. But we've lost the good sides, top 10 sides, European pushing sides. Everton aren't that. That's the thing. That's why I think people are concerned. Manner in which we lost and who we lost to. The question is though, can we bounce back again? We've done it twice. We've got to do it again. It's only 2 games, but one of them is probably the most concerning game of the season. And as far as fans who've been here before, knowing what it's like to bottle situations. But you look at the remaining games, we've got to take this into our own hands. It still is in our own hands. And a key point here is obviously we don't play until the Monday. Some teams play twice before we next play. So for the first time since Boxing Day, we could see our 3rd place position. In fact, we're going to lose it, aren't we? We're not going to be 3rd come Monday against Spurs. We could even be 5th because Newcastle played twice, Man City and Chelsea also have to play as well, and Aston Villa. We've been 3rd for such a long time. 5th would still be good enough, and that's what matters ultimately. But when you've lost a position you've held for so long, a good position that is, you want to keep it. The remaining games though, 15th place Spurs, all over the place. They suit our style of football perfectly. They play high. They leave so much space in behind. Everybody knows how Spurs play. They're a car crash of a team, but they can also still be very good in moments. They're all over the place. That's the problem with them. But we can absolutely exploit them. We've got to. I'm just concerned we're going to go there because they are still an alleged Big Six club, and it's just not going to work for us. I'm concerned, but I also feel it could suit us perfectly, that game. Brentford, 11th. A similar sort of game to me. To Everton. I feel there's similarities between those 2 matches. That could be a real dangerous game, but a game we know we can be winning. Crystal Palace, dangerous match as well. All these games are dangerous but winnable. Sorry, Elliot, if you're watching, but I'm just saying the truth. But Palace, besides losing to City last week, have been in some exceptional form, so a tough game that for sure, but you'd probably take a point from that one. Leicester at home, we can't be losing that game. We just can't. No, we can't be losing that game for a number of reasons. West Ham are now 17th away from home as well. Another opportunity to go and win. And we know we can win away from home now. And then Chelsea at home. Is it funny that I think that is arguably the best opportunity we've got of winning? I generally think it is, because we've beaten City, we've beaten Spurs, Man City this season. I said City twice, I meant Man United. We've beaten all those teams, drawn with Liverpool, drawn with Arsenal, not lost to a big gun at home. I don't know, that game does concern me a lot against Everton, if I'm honest, but we have still got a decent run of games to finish the season. Not an easy run, but probably a more favourable run than it could have been. So, yeah, get your thoughts in the comments, everyone. I think this is a big topic. Is not getting Champions League football a failure or not? I think in some aspects it is, because we've held that position for such a long time. It also kind of isn't, because no one expected it anyway, but there's lots of ways you can look at it, but I just feel we've got to get over the line. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, everyone, and there'll be another video this week as well, with a big week coming up next week before we play at Wembley for the first time since the playoff final. Stay tuned to the channel, plenty coming up. Hope you've enjoyed this, and up the Reds.